3 for affirmative.
No, that's not what I was intending. What I was intending was that we needed 4 votes to move on anything, to pass any motions.
All right, well, we'll see what Tyler says. He's looking it up.
Okay.
Hey, Ross, we're going to go live soon, but I want to let you know that the other 2 cases are being continued from the Amazon, so the only ones left are the bank.
His audio is still connecting.
Oh.
Ask him now.
Hey, Ross, so the 2 Amazon cases are being continued, and the only 3 cases left on the agenda are the bank.
I understand.
Okay, just want to make you aware of that.
I will recuse myself.
Also, we're still waiting. 'Cause that recusals. Oh, there's Webster.
Who's that coming on?
We don't know who that is. Can I remove
We
him?
can mute and then they can unmute and we can ask which case they're, or who they are. So at the top,
Mhm.
yeah, there. And then unmute yourself.
Mr. Chairman, let's just wait in a little holding pattern here for a second. Michael is going to think things over and try and reach out to Jeff. And is it
Okay.
Sheila who we're missing as well?
Yes.
Okay. So he's going to reach out to Sheila and Jeff to see where they are. And he's hoping that one of them will show. And he hasn't made a decision yet as to whether we can proceed yet. So I'll be back as soon as he calls me and I'll let you know what we can do. Okay?
Okay, very good. Thank you, Tyler.
Steve, I did mention what you had mentioned, and he's looking it over. So I'll be back in a little bit.
Jay Webster, which case are you with?
The bank?
The bank, yeah, okay. Thank you.
So anyone can join us? Residents and...
Well, he's here for the bank. Yeah, we didn't send it to neighbors, so. Actually, why don't you move us, well, I don't think we're live yet, but.
a little weird. Oh, that could be. This is a lot more high tech than FaceTime.
Would you like a cup, like a mug of water?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
Carrie?
Oh, maybe she has one. I don't know.
Do we plan to call the
Here we go.
first 2 cases at all?
Sheila's signing on.
We're still waiting to hear, George.
Okay.
Hi,
You
Sheila.
may find that
Glad you can make it.
these vacancies are immaterial to the quorum issue.
No,
Since,
I'm talking about the first two cases so that we fix the, so they don't have to go out and do,
Okay. I don't know if we need to wait for Tyler anymore, because we do have Sheila here now.
Yeah, well, let's,
I think council needs to be present.
Okay,
yeah, we should wait for Tyler to come back.
okay, because we are live now.
Hi Sheila, good evening.
Oh, I think we're on mute.
Good evening. Sorry about the delay. Running back from a hockey game.
Well, glad you can make it because we were having a problem with a quorum.
Oh.
Yeah.
Are we okay?
Okay, we are live, so we'll put everyone on mute until we get the Tyler's thumbs up.
I'm back.
Play unchecked.
I talked to Michael. Obviously, Sheila's here now. We have a quorum.
Very good, thank you. Okay. This meeting will come to order. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Plan Commission meeting for the Village of Skokie for May 6th. And let me read our little notice here. Until further notice, meetings of the Skokie Plan Commission will be held electronically, with the majority of the members participating via remote access in order to comply with the State of Illinois Gubernatorial Disaster Proclamation. Members of the public who wish to comment as to an item on the published agenda must submit their statement or question in writing to Steve Marciani at steve.marciani@skokie.org. And all properly submitted statements or questions will be presented and read during the relevant portion of the meeting. Written comments may be submitted also by email to citizens comments, that's one word, @villageskokie.org, or by mail to village via the village Dropbox, by mail to 5127 Oakton Street, Skokie, Illinois, 60077, or via the village Dropbox no later than noon the day of the meeting, located at the public entryway at Village Hall. The meeting may be viewed on Skokie Vision Cable channels 17 and 25, or via the village website. Okay, first order of business, I will call the roll. Commissioner Mitchell? Is that a present?
I'm here.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Quain?
Here.
Commissioner Lacani?
Here.
Commissioner Franklin?
Here.
Commissioner Jeff Berman? Commissioner Matei?
Present,
Thank you, and I'm here.
I'm here.
And we do have a quorum. First case tonight, actually, I have three related cases. Oh, excuse me, before we go any further, we need to approve the minutes from the last meeting. Do I have a motion to approve? I have a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Yes.
Thank you, George. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay. No opposed. Okay,
Commissioner, Chairman Luke,
just a
If I may
minute,
have a
just a minute, Mr. Matei, Commissioner Matei. Cases.
I need to recuse
No,
myself
just
from these.
just a second, please. Cases 2021-13 and 2021-14P, those cases will be continued till June 2nd, is that correct? June 3rd, okay. All right. So therefore, cases that we're going to hear tonight are case 2021-15P, 2021-16P, and 2021-17P. Commissioner Matei?
Chairman Luke, I need to recuse myself and wish that you'll grant this, as I am an interested party. The petitioner is my employer.
I understand. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. So, we have case 2021-15P zoning map amendment, related cases 16P and 17P, alley vacation, and a special use permit. And who is here tonight to present the case?
Mr. Chairman, on behalf of Wintrust Bank, DBA North Shore Community Bank Skokie, Richard J. Witry, 7835 Niles Center Road, Skokie. With me tonight, on behalf of the Wintrust Corporation, Michael Kelly, and our professional engineer, Mr. Tom McCabe, is with us as well.
Okay, the two gentlemen, could you, as you're sitting, raise your right hand, please? Do you affirm that the testimony you give tonight is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. And Counselor Trubisky, is the notice in order?
Yes, notice is proper and correct for all these cases.
Thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Witry?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. These three cases are brought on behalf of Wintrust Bank, DBA North Shore Community Bank Skokie. And briefly, I would like to indicate to the Planning Commission members that North Shore Community Bank has been in Skokie since 1999 and has been at that present location since 2001 when the building was built. I submit that Wintrust Bank, North Shore Community Skokie, has been a very good corporate citizen of the village of Skokie. The bank supports the Backlot Bash and is a contributor and a supporter to the North Shore Center for the Performing Arts. We come before you today as you are aware that the bank has purchased the property formerly known as 5050 Mulford Street and wish to make it a parking lot and adjunct to the present bank parking lot. And in order to do that, we would need the village of Skokie to consent to an alley vacation. And part and parcel of that, of course, is the zoning map amendment and the special use permit. At that point, I have really nothing further to say. I would turn it over to you, Mr. Chairman, and will Mr. Kelly and Mr. McCabe will stand ready to answer any questions that the commission may have.
Would Mr. Kelly or Mr. McCabe kind of go over the special use permit portion then? Give us an overview of the project?
Tom?
Yeah, I can do that. So what we have is, as Mr. Witry noted, we have two lots. We have the bank lot, we have a residential lot, and then we have an alley owned by the village between us. And the intent here is to consolidate the two lots, vacate the alley, and actually incorporate the alley into the consolidation. So that then we would have one lot that would include the bank, the vacate alley, and then the new parking lot that we're proposing. The house has been raised, and we are planning on putting it in the parking lot and then heavily landscaping around there to make it a nice buffer between the bank and the subdivision around us.
How many parking spaces are you proposing?
15.
Okay. And do you need to include, do you need to increase the number of handicap spaces too, to the overall parking?
We do not.
Okay. Commissioners, are there any questions of the petitioners?
Chairman?
Yes, Commissioner Quain?
Yes, is this additional parking needed right now, anticipated, or is it for the purpose of improving the overall value of the site? Could you elaborate?
Mike, you want to take that?
Sure, I can add on that. Commissioner, the bank is partially in use right now due to COVID restrictions. There are a number of employees that are working from home. But we anticipate when we do eventually return back to normal, this will be added parking, especially for our bank employees. We're reserving those spots that are closest to the bank entrance for our customers. And this will allow us not to infringe on parking in the neighborhood and keep our employees primarily in the lot.
Good.
Any other questions? None? Okay, Mr. Witry, unless you have anything else to present right at this moment, I will have the staff present the reports to the commission.
Why don't you have staff proceed, Mr. Chairman?
Okay, thank you. Who's up? Is it Steve? Are you going to present the cases?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to request that I do all three cases simultaneously and that the staff reports for cases 2021, 15P, 16P, and 17P be entered into the record as presented.
So granted.
Okay, so three cases. The first one is the rezoning of the former house. This is necessary because we do not allow parking lots as a standalone use in a residential district. And once it's used for commercial purposes, it needs to be joined with the commercial special use permit for the bank with the drive-through. So we need to rezone that property to NX from R2, which is what the bank is currently zoned. Along with this is the vacation of the alley, which is 16P. And the alleyway will be incorporated into the new parking lot area. There are no utilities beneath that. There's just some overhead utilities which don't really serve anything now except the bank. So those will be placed underground starting at the property line on the LeClaire side, just like the rest of the lines were put underground with the previous portion of the development. We don't need to keep any easements other than the private property easement for the private utilities. And then the last part is amending case, the original special use permit, which was case 2001-39P, and it's just to incorporate the expanded site into the lot. It was always contemplated that eventually this house would, or the lot would become part of the bank lot, and there was some restrictions that were in the original special use on how much of the bank could be used, that no other use other than the bank could be used because of the limited number of parking spaces. So we've carried forward all of the conditions from the prior case, and with the exception of things that were already completed that are already included in parts of the village code, and that restriction that they couldn't rent any to any tenant. Other than that, there were two items of existing relief that also need to be carried forward, and those are included in our recommendation. So our recommendation is to approve all three cases and then repeal the original special use permit and replace it with this new special use permit.
Okay, very good. Are there any questions of the staff by the commissioners? No questions? Okay. Matt, do we receive any citizens' comments or?
There's been no public comments, Mr.
No public comments. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Luke?
Yes, Commissioner.
We did
yes,
get
Steve.
one email, just for the record, and they were general questions about the condition of the street on LeClaire and whether that would be improved as part of this project. And I said, no, that's an off-site improvement. And then also just to reassure that there would be adequate landscaping. And he was very happy with the existing landscaping on the site. And he was assuming that that level of landscaping would be included. Nasco, can you scroll down to the landscaping plan real quick?
Sure.
And are you able to zoom in a little bit?
Zoom in.
Yeah, thanks. So the only thing that was being added is we need to add some additional parking lot screening on the LeClaire side because it was not present, and that's a condition of approval to move forward to the village board.
Okay. When you say one comment, is that from a single individual or to the individual
Yes.
represent
His,
other.
his response was, "Thank you for the feedback." So his issues were addressed. So we don't have to respond here, other than I just needed to put in the record that
Okay, very good, thank you.
and what
Thanks
the
for
resolution
taking
was.
care of that. So,
Mr. Chairman,
yes, Mr. Witry.
Mr. Marciano, are you completed your presentation?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
I was going to ask you if you have any closing comments?
Mr. Chairman, my client supports 15P, 16P with no recommendations, no observations. With respect to 17P, however, we do have a concern. I'm going to ask Mr. McCabe to speak to it, but condition number 23, which is all overhead utilities on the subject property or an adjacent right-of-way shall be placed or relocated underground. The petitioner shall bear the full cost of any utility relocation and/or conflicts. And I do note that in parentheses, it is standard, close paren, which tells me that this is included in probably every
In most
staff
of the
report
cases,
that
yes.
is presented to the commission. We believe that the cost of burying the overhead utilities will be extremely exorbitant and would make this project not feasible financially. I'm going to ask Mr. McCabe, our professional engineer, to comment on that for the commission, if you would. Tom?
The overhead lines, it looks like there's 3 sets of lines. There's ComEd, I believe the telephone and the Comcast or whoever the provider is for the internet. We just finished a project for Wintrust where we had a similar issue, only these were lines that were already buried. We had to lower them, which took moving lines maybe 2 or 3 feet, digging a trench 2 or 3 feet deeper, and just dropping the lines in there. The price from ComEd was on that project was just about $500,000. The other 2 were around $100,000. So as you see on a 15-car parking lot, we're anticipating it may not be those large numbers, but again, that was to move a line and just move it a couple of feet. We're taking overhead lines, we're putting them underground. We're anticipating numbers on that magnitude. And like Mr. Witry said, it just makes this project not feasible. We've spent, and we're not complaining. We bought the house, we're buying the right of way, we're building a 15-car parking lot. And we feel that those 2 things plus the cost of the parking lot and the landscaping in that for the neighborhood is, we're kind of bordering on feasibility already.
Mr.
So
Chairman.
we asked for a waiver of that.
Matt, what's the department's consensus on that?
Well, if I could ask a question first of the applicant, and we met on site to kind of look this over, and there may have been some new information as we progressed. So there's poles, utility poles that go through the alley from one side to the other, east to west. Do those serve, I think we were talking about that it just powered the house, and then I think there's a transformer, the bank, and then it's really just a service for the house and the bank. Is that correct? Or does that go through and feed other homes and kind of a continuous circuit?
Pardon me. It drops down that far pole, Matt, when we were out there, drops down the far pole, and then it either feeds into the transformer. We don't know if it then feeds across the street as well and services those homes across the street. We don't know that. The power, if you look at those lines,
Yeah.
there's some pretty heavy power there that appears to be more than just the bank and the house. We had looked on well, like I said, we've been out there, you and I met out there before. We had even pulled up Google Earth to verify that. But it looks like there's some pretty heavy power up there that we believe continues.
We talked about if it terminated that, you would have to bury, but if it, continued across and fed other houses and, other properties, that they could, remain in place. And you would have to have an easement that, to continue that, since it won't be in the right of way anymore. So, but I think we were landing on during our conversation that they probably terminate, but you think they continue on. Is that correct?
I believe so, only because if you look again, if you look at the lines, there's 2 or 3 pretty significant lines there that feed the top.
Because we talked to ComEd about it, and they offered language for an easement, that we would add, to the vacation probably, but.
Sure, we have no problem with that.
Yeah. So Steve, can we adjust the language in the condition to make this?
Just some additional information that I did look at this with engineering, and there's no additional pole in the vicinity from the south side of the site. And it's very uncommon in Skokie that transmission lines of that type are underground at this type of location other than behind major streets, or in the downtown where we had them buried. So I have some concern about the poles staying up and extremely visible, not behind or between the house and the bank facility, that they're just going to be sticking up and very, very visible. I would be more okay with it if we said that if they are found to terminate, it's a building code that all service,
Right.
Private service has to be buried underground.
If we could adjust the condition that they terminate, then they should be buried.
I would be okay that if they are determined to terminate at the transformer, but we didn't consider that in the review, the aesthetics of that or anything, but that's my position, I guess.
Well, there might be more of an issue than just the aesthetics there. If those lines that are there are above 12,000 volts, it might well be that it's involving an express feeder that may feed some other properties right around there.
Yes,
has anyone contacted ComEd to see what would be required?
We didn't, because it was our understanding that based off of what happened on site that this wasn't going to be an issue.
And, we did, that information was sent, and they did ask for us to provide the easement language, but they didn't comment whether they should be buried or stay.
From my observation, the power goes from west to east. At dead ends on the bank property by the dumpster that is there.
For the transformer, yes.
It does not proceed to Mulford Street or across Lincoln Avenue.
Right, and so that's why we're saying they should be buried. If it terminates and those power poles are only serving the bank at that point, then they should be buried from that pole.
That's a conclusion that I don't understand. Why? I don't understand, just because it dead ends there, that you must have, they must be buried.
The village code says that all private property lines have to go underground for changes, whenever changes occur. And I think we agreed that, it's my understanding that we had agreed we weren't going to require that they go into the street, that the pole at the very north end may remain.
Right.
But just the part that's on the property has to go underground. That there would be a very small easement for one pole, which would be on private property on the north side of the alley, the existing alley, and that everything else would go underground.
Yes, and
I think just
that's
because
pretty common.
the wires come down the pole doesn't necessarily mean they don't go underground under the road and feed those houses across the street. Because that's all underground power over on that side too, correct?
I believe they're above ground in the back.
Okay.
But I can't, I don't have that up right now.
Okay.
Well, I'm still of the opinion that we ought to be finding out what is required for ComEd there, if you're putting the wires underground, regardless of that.
Staff is willing to, as long as Matt's okay with this, amend condition 23 to say, should it be determined that the lines only serve the one parcel, the bank parcel. But if they're private, if they are now a private utility, private service, that they have to be buried.
So if they serve something other than the bank, they can stay as is.
Beyond that, yes.
That's right. I agree with that.
From the north, from the pole on the south side of
Declare.
Claire. Matt, are you good with that?
Yes.
So if someone wants to make that amendment, we would be willing to do that. But
Well, gentlemen, we could kind of make an amendment to it tonight, and in the course, from the time that this goes before the board, you know, you can talk to ComEd, figure out what's going on, and then come to a more, you know, a real evaluation of what's actually happening there. So I'm just gonna say we'll just, we could adjust some of the comments or some of the wording of the condition tonight, but it's not, basically, it's not gonna be cast in stone. Is that okay with you, Mr. Woodtree?
Mr. Chairman, would you repeat that, please?
Basically, we're gonna, you know, adjust some of the language tonight, but, you know, it's not to say that it's cast in stone, and you'll have time, you know, to clarify with ComEd as to what's happening with the power lines, and then you guys can proceed from there and finalize it for the presentation before the board.
So tonight is a conditional approval?
Yes,
yes.
that would be.
Why,
To clarify, if one of the commissioners amends,
Yes.
our recommendation would be to amend to say that the overhead utilities of the subject property or adjacent shall go or be placed underground should it be determined that the service provided is only to the bank or does not go south of Mulford. Let's just say does not go south of Mulford.
And we can confirm
Yeah.
prior to the board meeting.
Yeah, confirm with ComEd.
Private service, it needs to go underground.
well, I thought the original issue here was the cost of putting the lines underground. I seem to recall that as being one of the conditions, one of the issues about making it cost prohibitive.
Well, you're right. You're absolutely correct, Commissioner Mitchell. Obviously, you know, if this project is to go forward, it has to be financially feasible. I don't think we can pay $100,000 apiece for a parking space. Given the fact that it'd be a conditional approval, would we come back before the Planning Commission?
No.
No, you wouldn't need to. You would just make your corrections and finalize it and take it before the board.
So, okay, so if we found this to be cost prohibitive, we could withdraw it before we get to the village board, is that correct?
Absolutely.
Or we could,
Okay.
Yes.
we could review
Alright.
the language again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have from now until this case goes before the board to review it again.
Well, if we find it to be financially not feasible because of cost, and we have the opportunity to withdraw before the village board, then we can go along with the amendment.
You also, if I could jump in, Paul,
Yes.
you also have the opportunity to explain to the board that the current language is cost prohibitive, and we'd like to change that.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner
They
Quinn.
have the power to change it too.
You're absolutely correct. All right.
Should be June 7th.
Yeah. Before it goes to the board?
Yeah.
Okay. So I understand that this case may go before the board on June 7th. Is that
That's
enough time for
awfully
you?
quick.
Is there enough time for you to work that out, Mr. Woodtree?
Yes.
June 7th, and if we can't go forward June 7th, we'll ask for a continuance.
Okay,
We don't have to put the case on the agenda until this is resolved, as long as
Okay.
the petitioner agrees that we're not holding up the case.
You're not holding up the
Requesting
case.
continuation, yes.
We need to do some financial due diligence here.
And we need to determine whether or not if that's private service.
Okay. No,
Yeah, we gotta bring ComEd into this some kind of way.
we'll undertake to do that.
Yeah, because, I'm really concerned about it being probably an express feeder that may be feeding a block or two away. That's one. The other thing is, some of the lines that are there can be used in case there's an outage to reverse the voltage flow, to pick up customers who may be out of service. So, yeah, we have to bring the electric company into this discussion, I would think.
Okay. Mr. Chairman,
yes, Mr. Witry.
may I address my colleague, Mr. Kelly, for a second?
Certainly.
Yes.
Mike, you've heard the conversation. What's your druthers here?
I think that we can get a hold of ComEd and AT&T and any of the cable companies and verify at least one of those before the June 7th meeting. So I think we'd be fine.
Mr. Chairman, if you care to proceed, we're fine with that.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr. Witry. Okay. With that out of the way, I guess I'm ready for a motion on case 2021-15P, the zoning map amendment. Do I have a motion?
Terrible thing to die for lack of a motion.
No, I think everybody's muted, that's why. Unmute.
Paul, are you asking for a motion, including the amendment?
This is just for the zoning map amendment for case 15P.
Yeah, I move approval.
Okay, and I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Franklin. A call for the vote on 15P. Commissioner Mitchell,
Aye.
Commissioner Quain,
Aye.
Commissioner Lakhani? Lakhani?
Aye.
I'm sorry? I didn't get, we didn't get that.
You said
Aye. She said aye.
She said aye? Okay. Commissioner Franklin?
Aye.
Let's see. Jeff, I'm not sure if you've listened to all the argument. I'm not sure.
I came in a little late, so I apologize, but if you want my vote, I would vote aye.
Okay. Commissioner Matei abstains, and I'll vote aye. Okay. On case 2021-16P, the alley vacation at 7800 Lincoln Avenue, do I have a motion do I have a motion? Motion, anybody?
The silence is deafening.
Yes, I know.
Okay, so moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Franklin. Do I have a
A
second?
motion to approve, Commissioner Franklin?
Is that
Pardon
to
me?
approve? Is that a motion to approve?
Sorry, is that a motion to approve?
I thought I was moving to
Approve, or?
hear the motion, yes.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Lakhani? Thank you, Commissioner Lakhani. Call for the vote. Commissioner Mitchell?
Aye.
Commissioner Quain?
Aye.
Commissioner Lakhani?
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Franklin?
Aye.
Commissioner Berman?
Aye.
And I'll vote aye. And the special use permit at 7800 Lincoln Avenue, case 2021-17P. Do I have a motion?
Would that be with the amendment to item 23?
It'll be dependent on whoever comes up with the motion.
I'd like to move approval with the condition that private service of overhead utilities be determined and finalized prior to meeting with the village board.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Quain. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Commissioner Berman. Call for the vote. Commissioner Mitchell?
Aye.
Commissioner Quinn,
Aye.
Commissioner Lakani,
Aye.
thank you. Commissioner Franklin,
Aye.
thank you. Commissioner Berman,
Aye.
and I'll vote aye. Motion passed. So, most likely this case will go before the board June 7th. And hopefully, you'll work out the issues with ComEd and all the other utilities involved. So, gentlemen, good luck with your project. Thank you, Dick.
Thank
Good
you,
seeing
Mr.
you
Chairman. Thank you,
Thank you.
Commissioners.
Thank you,
Is there
Committee.
anything else before the board?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'd just like to remind the commission that the next scheduled plan commission meeting on the 20th is not occurring because the space is going to be occupied, I believe it's for budget hearings.
Oh,
So the
yes,
next
that's right.
meeting will be the first meeting in June,
Okay, very good.
which is June 3rd.
June 3rd will be our next meeting. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for attending. This meeting is adjourned.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.